This is the 1974 Alfa Romeo GTV 2000. A car that didn't just aim to compete, it aimed to captivate. With design by Giugiaro, a twin-cam engine, four-wheel disc brakes, and one of the best shifting 5-speeds of its era, it was everything Alfa knew about making a car feel alive. If you were alive back then, or even a few months ago when we did a feature, you might have learned about its direct rival, the BMW 2002. The BMW was surgical. The Alfa, all soul. This GTV belongs to Josh of Analog and Grit down in San Diego. Josh built his brand around machines with character, not just horsepower. And this car fits perfectly. It's raw, but defined. Spirited, yet precise. Because where the 2002 was about performance, the GTV was about presence. And decades later, it still turns heads and wins hearts.
The 74 GTV Alfa Romeo was never really supposed to be my car. So how did I end up with this car? It's a pretty funny story. So Analog and Grit, it's a social car club. We got a lot of members here with a lot of different cars. One member had this car, another member had an E92, and they traded. Well, the guy that originally had this car, he didn't care, but the guy that got rid of his M3, he had trader's remorse. He wanted his car back. He couldn't get it back. So as luck would have it, I had my own E92, less mileage on it, already did the rod bearings, bunch of swaps. And so I said, hey, well, I'll trade you. That's how I ended up with this car. Never did I think I'd have an Alfa GTV. I never really gravitated toward Italian cars, but I got it and it was just love at first drive.
Alfas were meant to be driven in a manner that no matter the speed, they still put smiles on faces.
I think I owned it for several days before I ever drove it. Once I turned the key, started up, drove it through the neighborhood, I developed some kind of connection to it, emotional connection. Starting a new business, you're thinking, okay, well, I'm willing to let anything go, like if I need to. To me, it was just a machine that I was gonna use to turn a profit. After I drove this thing and after I experienced it, I shifted my mindset. I gotta figure out a way to keep this thing.
The Alfa Romeo GTV is a keeper that wasn't built for perfection. It was built for passion, with curves and character the Germans couldn't touch. In a city like San Diego, it just makes sense.
So one surprise that happened just before I traded for the car, just before I traded that M3 for this car, we hosted a event at a brewery, and it was a German event called Kartoberfest. And so the previous owner drove this car and suddenly hit the brakes and the headlight fell out. And then he ran it over. I think that was kind of like the last straw of him not wanting the car. And so believe it or not, he went back to a BMW because in this case, and I agree with him, the BMW, nobody ever says this, but the BMW was more reliable. I haven't really done too much to it. I'm just preserving it at this point. I got a new gasket kit, try to stop dumping so much oil in it all the time. Moving forward, what I'm probably gonna do, because you can't tell from far away, it's kind of like a 30-foot car, but I think what I'd like to do is just do all the body work and just paint it fresh. I love the silver, I love the color. I love the way it looks. I don't want to modify it too much. I think in the future, fresh paint and body, repaint it silver, and then maybe lower it a little bit, if that's even possible. The wheels are pretty big. Does the GTV feel like a go-kart? It feels, I think my whole life I've kind of gravitated toward smaller cars. For that reason, they feel like go-karts. But the GTV feels like 50% go-kart and 50% cruiser. I'm cruising it. It's got bigger wheels. These wheels are made by a company called Alfaholics, which I call them like the Singer, like how Singer does Porsches. Alfaholics are starting to fix up the Alfa Romeos. They make really cool resto mod parts. So the wheels are a little bigger. They're meatier and bigger than stock, so it makes handling a little bit difficult. This isn't really like a car in its current state that I would use for carving the mountains and taking it to a track. I drive it with spirit, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a go-kart. I would say it's a spirited cruiser.
Look, it's hard for anything from 50 years ago to still be fast, but they can feel it.
You know what's funny? This car is always a crowd favorite. We do our Sunday Grit Cars and Coffee here once a month in-house. When I'm driving this car through downtown and around the San Diego neighborhoods, people, even today, we're driving it around, people are giving thumbs up, like, rev it up, we want to hear it. It's kind of a good feeling that people, especially young people, still appreciate the old classics. I would still drive it if I was the only guy on earth, but to get that kind of like affirmation that people still appreciate the design, the sound, people love this car. I'm not really sure how people know about it or why they love it, they just do. Some of my favorite things that have kind of happened since opening Analog and Grit and within the vintage car community are just the brotherhood, the sisterhood. I feel like vintage cars, they say something about you and your personality. It's almost like you go to the dealership and you buy a car and just slap down the cash and drive away with the car, but it really doesn't tell me much about you. When you're dealing with a vintage car, it's almost like your personality or your reputation, whatever you want to call it, precedes you. It's like saying, this is what I want the car to say about me, that I appreciate the past, that I appreciate analog things, that I'm willing to put the time and the effort and the energy into keeping this machine going, that I respect what the designers and the engineers did before me so much, in fact, that I'm going to keep this baby on the road. When you come into contact with people that have that same energy, that exude that same vibe, and you're like, hey, you're like me, you know, you want to keep old vintage analog cars on the road too, and you're willing to go above and beyond, you know, than just plugging in an OBD2 computer and having the computer tell you what's wrong with the car. You have to troubleshoot, you have to modify, you have to improve. And to meet people with that mindset, that like-minded mindset, that's probably like the most refreshing thing. So when it comes down to my cars and my vibe, it's kind of like the same mantra as the brand. Like the word grit always stands out to me. Things with grit, people with grit, machines with grit, they have that lived in feel. They have that used vibe. If something lacks grit, it's almost like it hasn't been used or you're afraid to use it. I want my machines, whether it's a motorcycle or a car or an art project, I want it to feel gritty. I want it to feel used. I want it to be beautiful in that way, where not only is it art, but it's got, you know, a couple scratches, a couple dings, some road rash, a curved wheel. Things can still be beautiful when they have like grit and scars to them. Use it, you know, because we're not here forever, and things that get used are things that get enjoyed. And when you're using your things and enjoying your things, that's life.
And life in an Alfa Romeo just has a kick to it.
When you get in this car, you turn the key, you kind of let the fuel pump turn on, you hear it, you fire it up. It's a kind of a visceral experience where you smell it. It could be a leak in the firewall, I'm not sure, but the fuel smell is part of it. The ITBs, it's like you can hear the intake sucking, leaving the warehouse here, driving down the street, it's just revving high. It's almost like Jay Leno says, you don't need to be driving 150 miles an hour to have a good time. And I couldn't agree more with this car. I'm doing 65, 45 on the neighborhood streets, and you just feel like you're in an Italian rocket ship. I just love everything about it.